The Blokebusters podcast is proud to be a member of the Pod Bros Network. You can find us, as well as other fantastic podcasts, such as Pencil and Ink Review, Another Damn Trivia Show, and Language of Bromance at podbros.com, as well as on most other fine podcasting services. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to share and enjoy the Blokebusters podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Blokebusters podcast special feature that we've been doing called Podcast Spotlight. I am Paul, and Brian is not here with me today. However, this time I have a special guest. It is your friend and mine, Bubbawheat. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm excellent. It is Sunday night. I'm staying up late and then going into work at about 7 o'clock in the morning. Hooray!
Yeah, me too.
Oh, well, there we go. Oh, always fun staying up late when you know you really should be going to bed. Alright, so, yeah, obviously we have you on. For those who don't know, this is where we get people on to talk about both a film that they really like and a film that maybe they don't like so much. And we'll start off with the one that you do like. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to, for no reason whatsoever, hazard a guess as to what genre this film might fall into. And I will confess, I don't know too much about your own personal preferences, so I am going to spread my net as wide as I can here. I'm going to guess either the comedy genre or the let's go with thriller genre.
I suppose there could be a thriller element to the movie. It's definitely not a comedy.
All right, well, I'm calling that a win for me then, if I'm close. All right, so what is this film?
Well, I will start off by saying that it's not one of my absolute favorite movies. Because I feel like most of my favorite movies are ones that get talked about to death. And in fact, the first one that came to mind is one that you actually covered recently, which would be The Princess Bride.
Who doesn't love The Princess Bride? Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, so I went with one of my, it's up there, I'd say in the top 25, and my favorite films do shift around based on my mood.
Yeah.
But this was a film that I watched, I probably first saw it whenever I was a teenager. And it was on the late night block of Cartoon Network. And this was long before Adult Swim.
Okay.
But it's actually an anime movie.
What's that fine by me. I'm a big anime fan.
And it is Vampire Hunter D.
Okay, this is one of the ones that I have not had the opportunity to watch, so this should be interesting. Alright, well, obviously, since I have not watched it, you can try and sell it to me, but I am an anime fan, so just sell to our listeners and anyone else who happens to stumble upon this somehow, why should we watch this film?
Well, I think, first off, the character designs are based on acclaimed artist. I believe his name is Yoshitaka Amano. He's most famous for doing the designs for like the early Final Fantasy games.
Right.
And it's kind of like a sci-fi vampire western.
I've seen bits and pieces from this, and that sounds about right. It's a very interesting art style as well. It was just a little different from the time, I think. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong there, since I'm not the one who's seen it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough for me to say because I did watch a lot of like 80s and 90s era anime. Like obviously Akira and another one that was actually in the same block on Cartoon Network was Robot Carnival.
That another one that I've not seen, and I've not heard of that one. I have seen Akira. Since I went to university and did film studies, I've seen Akira. So, but no, I don't know about Robot Carnival. Maybe I'll have to look that one up later as well.
Yeah, that one's a little bit harder to find. This one has come back a little bit. I know there's an anime DVD studio. They just recently did an updated English dub for it, and they re-released it on DVD and Blu-ray like late summer of last year.
Oh, okay. Have you seen both of the dubs, or just one, or do you stick to subtitle only?
I'm one of those. I'm sure, like some anime purists hate people like me, but I typically always listen to the dub instead of the subtitles.
I can understand that. I am one of those people that prefers listening to the sub, and that's mainly because I feel that a lot of times what can happen is something in the anime that is uniquely Japanese just gets changed to something else entirely, just so that it flows better to a Western audience. And I may not be very well versed in Japanese culture, but I like seeing those types of things. But I will admit that there are plenty of fantastic dubs out there. For instance, I think every single Ghost in the Shell film or TV show has fantastic English dubs, as well as the traditional Japanese audio. And then you run into things like your Dragon Ball Z, which is just transformed completely into a kids show when it came over to the West. So yeah, and I would imagine that something like this, a film, would have drawn people that really wanted to make it as best as they could. So I'm going to assume that the English dub, at least the first one, if not both of them, are going to be quite good. I don't know if I'm going to end up watching it dubbed instead of sub, but obviously I imagine you liked it since you brought it up today.
Yeah, I believe some people do complain about the original English dub, which is very similar in quality to the original Akira English dub. It's kind of flat in places, but I think the artwork and the story really makes up for it.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, what about the story or the film in general actually speaks to you? What is it that made you choose it?
Well, I'm also a big fan of like vampire stories in general, and this does have a few of the slight cliches because, I mean, spoiler alert, the D stands for Dracula.
Oh no, what a shock.
Yeah. And it's not entirely clear. I don't believe that obviously D himself is not Dracula, but I believe that the film insinuates that he was sired by Dracula because he is a Dunpeel, which is a half-human, half-vampire.
Yes, and one of those words that has been pronounced about 5 different ways in the last 20 years, I think.
And he's also like he's kind of like the silent stranger type, like the Clint Eastwood, the man with no name, where he doesn't say a lot, but he just has this presence.
That's always fun, and yeah, when it comes to anime, there's a lot of stuff that can be done with just fantastic drawings, and I imagine there's a lot of stuff done with the shadows as he's doing his powers. And it's one of the things I love about anime, actually, is that there's so many things you can do in anime that you would need a fantastic CGI budget to even come close to doing in live action films. And yet with anime you're able to just go with it because that is the style of that world.
Yeah, and one other thing that I love about this is it takes place in the future. So besides the vampires and things, they're like you have the big evil count, which is the typical like evil vampire who lives in this big castle and he has a bunch of minions. But in this case, most of his minions are actually mutants.
When you say mutants, you mean somehow used his blood to change their DNA or something? Or is it that they mutated over time? Like what
Yeah, I get the impression that that's like mutants are relatively common in this future, but they are obviously outcasts because they're not quite like the X-Men mutants.
Okay.
Because most of them are incredibly physically deformed. Like there's this one weird looking he looks kind of like Gollum, only has a big hunchback, and he can like send these small creatures out from his back, the hump on his back.
Okay.
But then there's also a more normal looking one who looks kind of like Billy Idol.
Okay.
And he can kind of warp space and time.
So yeah, they really do go as far out there as they can with some of these. Okay. It sounds like something I definitely should go and watch. I don't know when I'll be able to do it in the near future, but I'm going to write it down now to make sure I find some time for that. So, do you have a favorite moment or scene from the film that, like, every time you watch it, maybe you look forward to that scene, or just something in it that really gets you?
I'm trying to remember. I know that there is also another kind of bizarre sci-fi element where one of Dee's hands actually has eyes and a mouth and a personality.
Oh.
And he doesn't come out very much, but there's this one weird scene, like after it appears that Dee has been killed, but the hand is still alive. And the hand is trying to get Dee to wake up. And he has to eat a bunch of dirt, and then he can like suck up a bunch of, like, he can breathe in order to, I don't know, take in a bunch of energy from the air, and that helps him revive Dee before this this flesh-eating mist comes to get him.
Huh. Okay. And yeah, for those people listening that don't watch anime, this actually makes complete sense, really. Yes. I'm not shocked in the slightest that this exists. Alright, well, I can understand why you might like that. That sounds completely random, and I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, and also, like, throughout the film, the hand is almost like a comic relief in moments, because he makes a lot of like jokes and kind of comments on the situation.
Okay, so you would just say that, and again, this sentence would sound weird if it was anything else, that the left hand of Dee is your favorite character. Okay.
Yeah, in a way.
All right. Yeah, I'll definitely. I think that just moved it up a few spots on my list of films to watch. Now, I imagine, being an anime, and I'm assuming based off of manga, that there is a sequel to this film, or at least some sort of continuation.
Yeah, they actually made one, like, I don't know, many years later. I think it was the late 90s, possibly early 2000s. And it was a very different art style. It looks a lot more expensive because it's a lot more detailed. Right. Because the original is very, it looks very 80s. This isn't Akira that we're talking about. It's not that level of animation, but I believe it's called Bloodlust was the sequel.
Okay, I think I've heard of that one. I don't know. Maybe I saw someone was playing it somewhere and I didn't get to see it or something like that. But I've definitely heard of Bloodlust.
Yeah, and that takes it's a very different story. There's a bit more, I'd say, a bit more action, and there's a bit more of a love story because it's like Dee joins up with this gang of human vampire hunters. and they're kind of both taking this bounty to save this mayor's daughter.
Right.
But then they eventually find out that the mayor's daughter is in love with the vampire.
Ah, of course.
And so it has a bit of a Romeo and Juliet vibe.
Well, I was going to say, assuming that it didn't have a sequel, what would you have wanted to see from it? But since it does, do you feel that the sequel is an adequate continuation of the story, or would you have wanted something else?
Yeah, I think the sequel is good in its own way, and I think that it does what a good sequel would do for this type of character, because Dee, being a half vampire, he would be very long lived, and since he is this like wandering bounty hunter, then each sequel I would expect to be like completely unrelated to each other. It's just him going on a different bounty.
Okay, so yeah, it could be as if it was 200 years further forward or anything like that. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered the film that you do enjoy. I mean, is there anything in particular that you haven't mentioned so far that you would want to bring up before we move on?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we were well and truly done with the one you like before we moved on to the one you don't. So, as is tradition, I'm not even going to bother trying to guess this one because, as I've said in the last two, there are so many bad films in so many genres, it's just futile to even try. So, go on then. What is the bad film?
Well, since I do run a movie review site where I specifically focus on superhero movies, and I try to watch, or my goal is to watch every single one of them that I can get access to. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that includes a lot of bad movies.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, and so before starting my site, I didn't really watch a ton of like hilariously bad movies. But I would say, like, ever since I saw this one, it has moved to the top of my list, to my bad movie list, and nothing has topped it yet. There has been one that I think is technically a lower quality film, but at the same time, it's more enjoyable to watch just because it goes all the way around the circle to being hilariously bad.
Alright then, so put us out of our misery. What is this one called?
And this one I'm sure nobody has ever heard of. It came out in 2013 and it's called Captain Battle, Legacy War.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say that one again. Captain Battle, Legacy War?
Right.
All right.
And obviously, it's one of those. It's not Asylum, but it's very similar in idea to the Asylum, where it's trying to capitalize on Captain America, obviously. And it's probably the most interesting thing about it is that it is actually based on a comic book called Captain Battle, which was out around the same time as Captain America. I think actually earlier than that one. But Captain Battle was published by some other comic book company, and so it went into the public domain. So that's why they were able to get the rights to it.
I honestly don't know where to go from there. This sounds incredibly stupid. So, what is the plot of Captain Battle? A sentence I never thought I would say.
Well, the plot is basically Captain America, where the main character, Sam Battle, there's this experiment in order to make him into a super soldier after he gets incredibly injured during this unnamed war. And he's fighting a bunch of Nazis, including a very cleavage-heavy woman named the Necromancer, and they're trying to resurrect Hitler.
Yeah, so far what you're saying, it sounds like it would be even a C movie type thing. I'm not sure this could be covered by B movie.
Yeah, and as far as the acting goes, I mean, it feels like just almost high school level acting.
Right, okay.
I think some of one perfect example that always stands out in my head is that there's a lot of gunplay involved, and yet nobody, like, you can tell that the bullet effects were done in like After Effects or some other free version.
Right.
Just special effects program, because the actors, they don't even pretend there's any recoil, and there's one actor that plays Captain Battle's father in flashbacks that don't really make any sense how they're supposed to connect to the main story.
Right.
But he doesn't even pull the trigger on his fake gun. He's just standing there holding it outside a car window, and you see the after effects of the bullets, the explosion.
Yeah, the muzzle
fire
flash.
Effect. Yes, the muzzle flash. That's what I was going for.
Wow, okay.
And the editing in this, I mean, there's literally a page wipe.
Oh.
So like whenever you're making a movie, like somebody like your aunt discovered Windows Movie Maker, and she goes through the list of the different wipes that they have available, and there's one that makes it look like it's turning a page. Yes. And that is literally one of the effects that they use in this film.
Okay, trying to play devil's advocate here, does it at least work all right, or is it as bad as it sounds?
Oh, it's as bad as it sounds. Okay. And like the makeup effects too, I think there's another character that's like the head Nazi that's trying to revive Hitler, and his face just looks like they covered it in red magic marker.
Oh, okay. So, yes, very definitely trying to rip off Captain America there. I can only imagine that the comic book must have had a guy with a red head as well. Otherwise, surely they would have been sued. Wow.
Yeah, and like the subtitle is called Legacy War, but that doesn't make any sense based on anything that happens within the movie. And it's really bad too, because they don't even go like the route of like the exploitation B movies, because there's next to no nudity in here. Like there's one stripper scene where they have some gratuitous nudity, right, but that's like less than 2 minutes.
Okay. I suppose in films like this they've got to somehow get people watching it, and well, yeah, if it's only a couple of minutes, then it would seem as though they haven't fully understood where they stand in filmmaking. Then what? Oh dear, yeah, I'm having trouble. I can't even picture this in my head.
Yeah, I believe that if I remember correctly, there's, and I may be confusing this with another bad movie, but I believe it happened in this one where there's a guy that he gets stabbed, and you can obviously tell that he's pretending to be stabbed by tucking the blade or whatever it was that he got stabbed with in between, like under his armpit.
Right, yeah. Yeah, see, the 5-year-old being run through with a sword type thing.
Right.
Oh dear. I almost want to spend the time to look this thing up, just to, because it's almost as if it can't possibly be as bad as you're explaining, but I'm not sure I want to bother with it.
Oh no, I would not bother, because like I said, this one, it's bad without being hilariously bad, because I mean there are those moments, but in between those moments is just nothing.
Right. Oh dear, yeah. So, as far as it sounds right now, you would say there's nothing to save this at all.
No.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to ask you. I was going to ask you a question, but I think it would take too long for you to answer. Which is, what would you do to make it better? Like, how would you fix it if someone were to come to you with this film and say, "We need to fix this film"? What would you do?
I would say, don't.
That's it. Yeah, you just watch it all the way through and then say, you can't. Like, sorry. Wow. Yeah,
Just burn it and start over.
Yeah, from what you were saying, I can't think of a way that you would save it. Maybe I would tell them, like, don't just go and watch Kung Fury instead. Like, so, watch something that is intentionally that way.
Yeah, that would be about the only way to redeem this, is to go the extra mile and turn it into like a Captain America parody.
Right, yeah, a full-on, like, go scary movie with it. Try and add some just comedy parody in there. See how that goes. All right, well, I mean, I've never heard of this thing, and after this, I'm never going to end up watching it. So I guess thank you for telling me not to watch this one.
Yeah, I will say, like, for a horribly awful superhero movie that is fun to watch, it would have been my second choice, and that's called The Amazing Bulk.
The Amazing Bulk. I wonder what they were referencing there.
Yeah, but that's a whole different level of awful, where literally the entire movie was filmed on like a green screen, and all the backgrounds are computer generated, but they're computer generated like they went to a high school computer graphics class and asked them to make all their backgrounds for them.
Okay. Wow.
But it is that one has to be seen to be believed, and you can just do like a YouTube search and like just some of the greatest hits just to see. And they use like this cycle animation of basically of the Bulk, which is just a purple Hulk, only his face is incredibly deformed. Right. And he looks like just a giant purple blob. Okay. And the actors, when they're running away from them, they're just kind of running in place.
Oh, that type of... Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least that does sound like something that could be funny to watch as opposed to Captain Battle.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess that is obviously a recommendation for Vampire Hunter D, and a recommendation not to watch Captain Battle, but maybe watch The Amazing Bulk. All right, well, thank you for telling us about those. It's been an education, to say the least. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you then?
Well, they can find me where I'm reviewing. Like I've almost covered all the good superhero movies, so I'm down to the bad ones and the new ones that come out as they come out at flightstitesandmovienights.com. And I also have a podcast that's filmwise.com, and that's WHYS, where each episode I cover a classic or a modern classic or sometimes like a cult classic movie that I've never seen before. And then I have my guest watch a superhero movie that they've never seen before.
All right. Well, that I do like that premise. So maybe you could have me on that one at some point.
Yeah, and I also occasionally do these little episodes that I just recently started. I believe just a few weeks before you started this one, called Filmwise Spotlight.
Yes, that is right. and I promise we did not try and steal the name or anything. It's just that the name we chose is most apt for this, and I guess the name you chose is most apt for yours. So,
yeah. Well, we do kind of do the same thing, except on my spotlight episodes, I like to think of it as shining light on some of the more underappreciated films that people do still like.
Yeah, no, and I believe I was on the first one you put out.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that one was the Hulk episode for those people listening to this that haven't listened to yours. So yeah, do go check that out. And if you want people to get a hold of you in any way, how would you recommend that?
The best place to get a hold of me, where I'm usually at, is on Twitter, where I'm at Bubbawheat.
All right. Yes. So go pester him, and I mean, not too much. He does have a job and other things to take his time, but go nudge him from time to time. And if you want to get a hold of us, we are on Twitter at Blokebusters, Facebook Blokebusters, or you can email us blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com. And one more time, thank you very much, Bubbawheat, for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, anytime. And we will see you guys at some other time with another episode of Film Spotlight. Bye.